A tourist from Johannesburg goes missing in Singapore. Soon after, expertly carved body parts are found floating in garbage bags in the harbor. Days later, a mother and son vacationing in Phuket, Thailand, go missing. Decomposing body parts are found. They too have been cut apart. 2 Asian countries in a state of terror. When will the killers strike again? There's a serial killer on the loose, and he uses his knife like a butcher. A series of murders has struck 2 Asian destinations, and authorities seem at a loss for any viable suspects.
This is a killer on a murder spree, and he's using some newly acquired skills.
He's cutting his victim to pieces, and the work looks professional. The question is, who is this butcher, and how are they going to catch him?
John Martin Scripps finds himself at a point in his life where he needs a change, and he decides to learn a new trade. He goes into butchery.
He's mentored under an experienced butcher to learn his skills.
He's got an affinity for his work. His mentor is very impressed. Scripps is doing all he can to learn about the art of butchering, and he's going to learn it fast.
It is March 7th, 1995, in Johannesburg. 32-year-old Gerard Lowe, a chemical engineer, leaves for a shopping trip to Singapore. He tells his wife Vanessa he'll call her as soon as he checks into his hotel. Lowe travels from South Africa to Singapore to shop for electronics.
Singapore is known as a great spot for savvy shoppers hunting for bargains. Lowe is excited to buy electronics at low prices.
Lowe tells his wife he will call her from the airport when he arrives in Singapore.
Gerard Lowe clears customs at Changi Airport in Singapore on Wednesday, the 8th of March, 1995.
At the airport, Lowe meets an individual named Simon Davis. He's very friendly, and he learns where Lowe is from.
Davis tells Lowe that he was also born in South Africa, so suddenly the 2 men have something in common.
Simon Davis says he's a businessman who sells Mexican clothes and suggests they share a room. This will save expenses and free up money for purchases.
Incredibly, Lowe takes him up on his offer, and the 2 men get a room together.
Both men check into a hotel.
The men enter the room, and soon afterwards, Gerard Lowe looks over his shopping list.
This is the last thing he'll do before the unexpected happens and there's no going back.
Gerard Lowe neglects to call his wife as promised.
Lowe is known by his family and friends to be reliable, and it's strange for him not to be returning the call that he promised.
When she doesn't hear from her husband, Vanessa Lowe files a missing persons report.
Report of a garbage bag floating along the harbor off the busy Clifford Pier is filed, and officers are dispatched.
Calling police about garbage would be unusual in the West, but not so in Singapore, which has rigorous littering laws.
Police officer responding to the call finds a black bag that has been reported.
Although Gerard Lowe has not contacted his wife, his credit card is used to withdraw $8,400 cash. Also purchases a video recorder, speakers, shoes and socks, and 5 lottery tickets, as well as a ticket for the Singapore Symphony Orchestra on March 10th. Most butcher certificates take 9 to 11 months to complete. But shorter, more intensive courses do exist. Sheila May Damoud and her son Darren John Damoud are tourists from Saanich, British Columbia. Sheila is 49 and an administrator at a school in Victoria, BC. Her 23-year-old son, Darren, is a college student. Darren enjoys part of his spring break in Asia, and Sheila decides to take a break from her desk job and to meet with Darren and enjoy the warm weather of Thailand.
She's a single parent and close to her 2 sons. Darren wants to be a physiotherapist, but he's taking a year off to travel and see the world.
This brief encounter is an opportunity for the mother and son to meet before Darren is off on his other travels.
Sheila meets her son in Bangkok.
Thailand is a tourist destination with many beaches to enjoy.
On March 15th, Darren and Sheila decide to fly to explore Phuket. Phuket is a mountainous island in the Andaman Sea, with some of Thailand's most popular tourist draws.
On the plane ride, the Damouds are in the same row as a seemingly friendly tourist by the name of Simon Davis.
They all share a cab from the airport.
And they all check into the same hotel along Patong Beach.
The Damouds are in room 43, and next door is their new friend in room 48.
The next day, Darren and Sheila go for breakfast. They are greeted by Simon Davis. After breakfast, they go upstairs to prepare to go to the beach.
The last time anyone hears from the Damouds is a March 17th phone call from Darren to a friend in Ontario, Canada. Darren is in good spirits.
The Damouds are not seen again.
At 11 a.m., Simon Martin asks the receptionist to change his room to 43.
He pays for Darren and Sheila's bill. This is how witnesses are created. When someone pays a bill for someone, it's usually remembered by the person receiving the payment. Family members are notified that there's suspicious activity on Sheila's credit card.
No one from the family can get a hold of Darren or Sheila. This is completely out of character for them, so they know something is really wrong.
Days later, 2 badly decomposed, severed heads are discovered in a disused tin mine. The identities are impossible to identify visually.
They can tell that the body parts belong to a blonde and a brunette.
A torso and 2 pairs of arms and legs are also discovered along Van Nai Trang Road, 6 miles from Sheila and Darren Damoud's hotel.
Due to the advanced state of decomposition, identification will be challenging.
But there is a very disturbing clue.
It can be seen that these body parts are expertly cut at the joints before disposal. It appears that the person who dismembered these bodies had some knowledge of where the joint capsules were, where the spaces were, and how to slice that tissue, making as least amount of mess as possible.
The police or pathologist would know that not everyone can make cuts like has been done to this body.
These killings look a lot like the work of a professional butcher, a butcher who's taken his skills to 2 different South Asian countries. Tourists Gerar, Darren, and Sheila all have something in common. They've come to Asia.
And they've all met this seemingly friendly tourist named Simon Martin. Police have now discovered that Simon Davis and Simon Martin are aliases. This is what causes problems for police in an investigation when a man is using multiple aliases, traveling across international boundaries. It makes a mess.
And all 3 end up murdered and expertly cut into pieces.
This is a situation that needs to be stopped.
Police now know that they have a demented butcher on the loose.
A tourist travels to Singapore for a shopping spree and disappears almost immediately upon landing. Within days, a mother and son on vacation together in Thailand, suddenly drop off the map. The one thing they all have in common is meeting a friendly fellow tourist who calls himself Simon Davies and Simon Martin.
Can this all be a coincidence, or is Simon Davis just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or is Simon the one who's targeting tourists?
Police now would want to know what would drive someone to act in this manner as a butcher. The only people with skills that can make these cuts are a veterinarian, a doctor, or a butcher.
Butchering is the process of slaughtering and preparing meat for use. Meat cutting is the process of cutting, boning, and portioning large cuts of meat to menu specifications. Attention to detail helps butchers process specific cuts of meat into different sections to maximize yields and reduce waste. This takes practice, often through apprenticeship under a master meat cutter.
Whoever this killer is, he seems to have gone off the grid. He's able to evade the police, and they're concerned that with the occurrences, he's escalating his activity.
In Singapore, a bag is seen floating in the water. Officers respond to the complaint about garbage, but what they find is not what they expect.
They are dealing with human remains.
Once the police open the bag that's found floating in the water, they make another discovery that it's body parts.
If you've ever deboned a chicken, taking the legs off is one of the most challenging parts. When we're doing a chicken, we slice towards the joint and then pop the joint open and cut between the two ends of bone. Now imagine doing that on a 150-pound person. There's a lot of tissue there. The skill you would require to do that without making a horrific mess is impressive. Obviously, there's a benefit to cutting the body apart as cleanly as possible. The less mess, the less spread of evidence around the area where it's being done, the less for the police to find and possibly convict you.
Police suspect that the victim is the tourist recently reported missing, Gerar Lowe.
The detectives now know that they have someone incredibly dangerous operating in Singapore, one of the most densely populated cities in the world.
The killer has preyed on a naive tourist in a city of tourists. They need to stop this killer, so they go to the beginning. They trace Gerar Lowe's movements, and upon his arrival from Johannesburg, Lowe checks into a hotel with a man called Simon Davis.
Police enter room 1511. They are hoping that it hasn't been cleaned, and they are pleasantly surprised that it hasn't. Because when the room hasn't been cleaned, there's a chance they'll be able to find evidence of who was in there, what was in there, is there DNA, is there any evidence left behind, physical or otherwise, that they can find, blood stains, etc. This is very important not to have the room disturbed.
They find traces of blood in the toilet in his hotel room. This isn't necessarily unusual. People shave in the bathroom, they may have had a nosebleed or an injury, and all these things might contribute to there being traces found in the toilet.
Police begin an intensive search of the hotel room, taking samples from every nook and cranny of the space. Swabs are collected and cross-referenced with the other evidence they have on file to ensure a match. What's so interesting is how little blood is found in the room. The human body contains over 1 gallon of blood, and the process of dismembering a body is not a clean one. This again speaks to the skill of the murderer, that the room did not have far more blood evidence than it did. Historically, much of the evidence found at crime scenes was observational in nature, assessed by the human eye directly. Now it is standard practice to use advanced techniques such as fingerprinting, DNA testing, chemical analysis, and more when assessing physical crime scenes. In 1995, DNA evidence was still in its infancy, and investigators used isolated and separated DNA fragments and sorted them into size-dependent bands with gel electrophoresis. The DNA was labeled with radioactive phosphorus and detected with film that is sensitive to X-rays. This whole process could take 6 to 8 weeks to complete. Despite advances, forensic science is a supplement to traditional investigative methods and not a replacement. Law enforcement officials combine traditional investigative methods, such as interviews and surveillance, along with other identification methods like fingerprinting and dental records to ensure a comprehensive approach and the most accurate investigation outcomes. Forensic science is most effective when it supports and validates the conclusions drawn from witness statements and other evidence. DNA analysis is relatively new compared to traditional investigative techniques, but has the unique ability to help identify individuals who may have been present at a crime scene that visual confirmation cannot verify. This involves comparing DNA found at a crime scene, typically in blood, saliva, hair, semen, or other samples, with the DNA profiles in law enforcement databases. DNA is now frequently collected from individuals suspected or convicted of crimes. In 1995, these databases simply did not exist, and investigators would need to have the suspect or a specific item tied to them in order to confirm any such evidence.
Police are desperately hoping that this blood sample can give them something to go on. This killer needs to be found and stopped.
A second trash bag turns up floating off Clifford Pier and contains Gerard's thighs and torso, cut with the same surgical precision as the legs.
Vanessa Lowe has arrived in Singapore, and she believes that these body parts look like her husband.
The DNA from the hotel toilet matches the legs.
It's looking like Gerard Lowe's body was very likely dismembered in the hotel bathroom.
When you have monstrous crimes committed like this, police are on a time crunch. They have to get some information, try to catch this killer before the community at large starts to get concerned.
Singapore police contact Scotland Yard to help them locate Simon Davis.
Between investigators in Britain and Singapore, they make an interesting discovery.
John Scripps applies for a British passport in the British High Commission in Singapore during a past visit, and the photos match up.
The police discover that Simon Davis and Simon Martin are actually one John Martin Scripps. This causes confusion and problems for law enforcement because when you have two different aliases with no link until this time, it's been difficult to find who the actual killer is.
They have his name and his alias, but no one knows where he could be.
From the hotel records, police are able to ascertain that Simon Martin contacted a travel agency. The travel agency confirms that this person that they're looking for has transferred a large amount of money to his U.S. account.
Because the transfer will take a couple of days to clear, Martin tells them he will go and enjoy Thailand for a few days and return to Singapore when the transaction is complete.
Simon Martin's idea of a holiday is looking like the most heinous thing imaginable.
From the travel agency, Martin buys a ticket to Bangkok.
He travels to another densely populated country full of tourists.
In Phuket, the Royal Thai Police must identify the decomposed, severed heads using dental records. The skulls are revealed to be those of mother and son, Sheila and Darren Damood.
Forensic analysis concludes that the torso, arms, and legs found later most likely belong to Sheila. No other body parts are ever found.
Meanwhile, police confirm that Simon Davis has arrived in the country, but they are unaware of his whereabouts.
Police are learning a lot more about their suspect and confirm that Simon Davis is really John Martin Scripps.
Butcher classes often have two facets. The first is theory-based, primarily the knowledge and application of how to achieve different cuts of meat. And the second involves hands-on experience. John Martin Scripps formally absconds from British prisons after being granted home leave. This happens in 1982, 1990, and most recently in 1994, when he is serving 2 6-year sentences for heroin trafficking. He absconds when he gets permission to visit his mother and sister.
What would be the reason that this heroin trafficker has morphed into an inhuman butcher capable of doing these horrible acts to people? This has to be solved fast.
Scripps has disappeared into the crowded city once again. Police in Singapore have no choice but to wait for his return.
Police desperately hope that John Martin Scripps won't change his mind about coming back.
The butcher is on the loose, and he's leaving his grotesque handiwork everywhere he goes.
In Singapore, a missing male tourist is found cut apart with surgical precision. In Thailand, only parts of a mother and son are found and must be identified through dental records. All of the victims meet a friendly tourist who goes by the assumed name of Simon Davis and who now has a ticket to return to Singapore that police hope he'll use.
John Martin Scripps has a criminal record, but it is not one of butchering people. The question is, why is it escalating at this point in time?
There's a wide range of reasons why a person might turn out to be a killer. There's a common belief that he feels he has no agency and he wants to have complete control over another human being. It's hard to understand what would compel a person like John Martin Scripps to kill and dismember people in this manner. Was he seeking attention? Was he a perverse thrill seeker? Was it out of rage? Or was there a financial motive?
The suspect, who now eludes the police, has a criminal record, and he is very capable of escaping from jail.
The old adage, a dull knife is more dangerous than a sharp one, is never more relevant than in a butcher shop. Dull knives can drag and require the user to apply more force than the knife is designed for, which can result in kitchen-related accidents. To maintain their blades, butchers sharpen knives multiple times a day.
The media wants to report news of the serial killer on the loose, but authorities don't want Scripps to find out that they know about him, so he goes into hiding again.
The media complies and makes no report. As planned, Scripps believes he's under the radar and continues to move freely.
It all pays off, and authorities finally get a break. Scripps returns to Singapore as he told the staff at the travel agency that he would.
John Martin Scripps is arrested upon arrival at the airport in Singapore.
Police want to interrogate him immediately, and they lead him to a room in the building.
It's easy to forget the evolution of airport screening. Before the World Trade Center terrorist attacks, people were able to get on a plane with little or no identification. In some cases, one could get directly to the airplane without a boarding pass or any additional screening. Also, creating false identification was far simpler. Despite changes in the early 1990s to make passports more difficult to copy, travel was still relatively simple, as many persons would travel with documentation issued from before these enhancements were made. After 9/11, countries adopted enhanced ID and passports that required a level of forgery skills only possessed by a few specialists. The process was much simpler in the past, as individual passport tracking was done manually in many regions. New IDs can be verified and confirmed as a government issue with a click of a button. John Martin Scripps is carrying more than $40,000 US in cash, traveler's checks, passports, Simon Davis's birth certificate, credit cards, and other belongings of Darren and Sheila Damoud.
Sheila's dress is found in his luggage, and he's inserted his own photo into Darren's passport.
Also found in his possession is a 10,000-volt taser gun, mace, knives, handcuffs, and a camping hammer.
Incredibly, these were all items that could be transported on a plane in those days, pre-9/11.
John Martin Scripps is now caught with incriminating evidence. True to his MO, he tries to escape again.
Scripps smashes a glass panel and cuts his wrist in a failed suicide attempt.
But it's far from fatal, and he's unable to evade the police this time.
Confronted with a bag full of overwhelming evidence, the suspect stays silent. But what could he possibly say? He's been caught red-handed with everything right there in his suitcase.
Police need time to build the case, so they charge him with forgery for falsifying Gerard's passport.
A pleasant tourist able to make friends in a heartbeat, or a cruel, sadistic killer. Police need to find out more about John Martin Scripps.
He is born in Hertfordshire, United Kingdom in December 1959 to Leonard and Jean Scripps. He has an elder sister, Janet.
Scripps spends most of his adult life behind bars for petty crimes and drug-related offenses.
John Martin Scripps is born in Letchworth, Hertfordshire, to Leonard and Jean. He is an East End bus driver and she is a barmaid.
He's close to his father, Leonard, who commits suicide by gassing himself when Scripps is only 9 years old. After his father's suicide, Scripps has problems with reading and writing. In 1973, at the age of 14, Scripps briefly disappears from a cadet training camp. One can only imagine what happened to him. He was obviously going down a bad path at a very young age.
He leaves school at age 15 because of dyslexia.
This young man is turning to a life of crime and no one seems able to intervene.
He has been convicted for burglary and theft in juvenile court.
In 1978, he is convicted as an adult for indecent assault.
There's some hope when he finally finds love and marries a Mexican woman when he's in his 20s. This is the first person who loves him who's not part of his immediate family, but ultimately his marriage doesn't keep him from a life of crime.
Between 1978 and 1982, he commits burglaries in London and is jailed in Israel for burglary. He is jailed for burglary and assault in Surrey.
His wife divorces him while he's in prison and Scripps' criminal activity continues.
After release from one of his prison terms, he legally changes his name to John Martin and drops Scripps. He also picks up the birth certificate of another inmate, Simon James Davis, and obtains a passport in Davis's name. He flees from prison to smuggle drugs through various countries. In 1987, he was jailed in London for heroin offenses. He escapes again in 1990, but is jailed for heroin possession. In 1992 to 1993, Scripps is at Albany Prison on the Isle of Wight.
As much as we'd like to find something in Scripps' past that would explain why he became such a brutal serial killer, financial motivation seems to be the main component.
The preliminary inquiry that the prosecution has put forward includes 77 witnesses in the murder charge.
There are a number of other charges, including forgery, possession of weapons, and drug possession. The trial begins on October 2nd, 1995, in the High Court of Singapore. And the death penalty is possible. Singapore does not have jury trials.
Scripps enters no plea but claiming trial, which under Singapore law means that he contests the charges.
He claims that he killed Gerard in self-defense, that he had grabbed a hammer when Gerard had made sexual advances to him when he was sleeping. He claims this was triggered by sexual assaults that had occurred to him while he was in prison.
Lowe's wife, Vanessa, counters this, testifying that her husband is not a homosexual.
Scripps attempts to reduce his charge to manslaughter instead of murder, which would mean a life sentence instead of execution.
He has a history of escaping from prison, and just the very idea of Scripps on the loose again is terrifying.
John Martin Scripps says that someone else is involved.
He won't name this man, but Scripps says that he works in an abattoir in the past and therefore would have the skills to help him.
Scripps claims he stays in his hotel room, while this individual disposes of the garbage bags containing the body of Gerard Lowe. He fears retribution from him, so will give no more information.
But the prosecution isn't buying his story, and they're ready to show how he has lured these unsuspecting tourists to their death. The government pathologist testifies that the cuts on Lowe's body could only have been made by someone with the skills of a veterinarian, a butcher, or a doctor. John Martin Scripps has the ability and the training to make cuts like this.
The pathologist states, "You are dealing with a serial killer." 3 tourists in 2 different countries befriend John Martin Scripps and wind up butchered. But despite overwhelming evidence against him, he still claims his innocence, stating that it was in self-defense and that this butchery was the act of an unnamed man of whom Scripps fears retribution. Scripps stands trial for the murder of Gerard Lowe in Singapore, but he claims he acts only in self-defense.
After a 6-week course in prison, John Martin Scripps has transferred his skills to the criminal world. He has dismembered bodies, maimed them. He is now treated as a maximum security risk in prison.
He is regarded as a dangerous man. Playing the affable tourist, Scripps uses his relationship with the Damudes to gain access to their hotel room. When he wanted to be, Scripps was as personable as they come, and disarming strangers was easy for him, especially fellow tourists who are on the lookout for adventure and whose guard is already down. But there is strict security in the courtroom.
The accused mother claims that he is selling his belongings in prison, and she believes it's an attempt for him to escape. She advises the police, and surprisingly, with this guy's record of having more escapes than Houdini, they do nothing.
This is particularly poignant testimony. If someone had been able to stop Scripps from escaping from prison, all this pain and tragedy could have been avoided.
The prosecution has put together a picture of what happens to these unsuspecting tourists and at what John Martin Scripps' handiwork has done to them.
At the airport, John Martin Scripps, under the name Simon Davis, strikes up a conversation with Gerard and proposes they share a hotel room to save costs.
Because Scripps decides to pose as a fellow South African, Gerard Lowe takes a chance on a stranger and agrees to split the cost of the accommodation.
Moments after they arrive in their hotel room, Martin attacks Gerard Lowe with a 10,000-volt taser gun until he is unresponsive. Martin then takes the unconscious Gerard into the hotel room bathroom, where he bludgeons him on the head with a hammer, killing him. With a foldable knife, Martin dismembers Gerard and places the body parts in a suitcase and small bag.
Hotel staff see Scripps leaving with bags and returning empty-handed.
Then Scripps asks the hotel receptionist to remove Lowe's name from the room registration system.
He is only on trial for the Lowe murder. The Damoud murders are not on the agenda at this point in time. However, because the police and the prosecution believe they're connected, they want to be able to get evidence from Thailand to use in this case.
They show how days later in Thailand, Scripps befriends Sheila and Darren. They all check into an inn and after sharing breakfast are seen going up to their rooms to get ready for the beach.
Scripps uses a taser gun to incapacitate his victims. He then bludgeons them to death, drags them into the bathroom, and dismembers them.
He puts the body parts in garbage bags. At 11 a.m., Martin asks the receptionist to change his room to 43. He pays their bill. A receptionist later recalls seeing Martin leaving the hotel carrying bags and riding off on a rented motorcycle.
The difference between the 2 cases seems to be that with Lowe, the killer was able to drag the victim into the bathroom and contain most of the blood there. In the Damoud hotel room, however, there was copious amounts of blood found in the living area.
In the killing of the Damoods, it looks like Scripps was less able to contain them as he initially hoped.
Scripps claims he just wouldn't be able to cut up the bodies so expertly because he's not that good a butcher.
Scripps's instructor praises Scripps and says he is a skilled student. His technique is very similar to the one used on the bodies discovered.
Scripps tells the judge that he did not act alone. He alleges that a British friend who's staying on the resort island of Sentosa disposes of Gerard's body. Last time he was in prison, he seemed like he was on a new and better path. He was training for a career.
The career John Martin Scripps was training for was to be a butcher. To teach a prisoner vocational skills, which they can practice during their sentence, can help them find work upon their release and contribute to their dignity, their sense of belonging, and a diminished likelihood of reoffending.
However, there is no way to predict if a person can be rehabilitated.
He was far beyond the point of no return.
In this place, he becomes a model prisoner, and he's working in the prison butcher shop.
It seems possible that Scripps has finally had enough of the criminal life, that he's finally looking to a future and a better path ahead.
When he's in the butcher shop, the prison officials note that he's extremely keen to learn about the craft of being a butcher. This fits into the mode of rehabilitation, so they teach him everything he needs to know about slaughtering and cutting up animals in the proper way. These skills could lead to post-prison employment, which is the goal of the system to rehabilitate and get people into the normal workforce.
Over a 6-week training period in March and April of 1993, John Martin Scripps is trained to bone out the forequarters and hindquarters of beef, sides of bacon, carcasses of pork, and how to portion chicken.
While his training has taught him to dismember animals, he is able to transfer this knowledge to the dismemberment of human carcasses. What Scripps has done is so grotesque that even the wisest prison official and psychiatrist would never be able to predict that someone would take those skills and cut human bodies up. It's something you can't predict.
Scripps tells the officer that he would like to open a butcher shop when he is released.
Turns out Scripps doesn't wait for his release or for his own butcher shop. He takes off again, and this time he definitely has murder on his mind.
These skills that he has learned in prison, he has now transferred to the dismemberment of human bodies. This has terrified Asian countries and the rest of the world.
He is formally charged for the murder of Gerard Lowe in September 1995.
John Martin Scripps learns to be a butcher in prison. He escapes, and posing as a tourist, he lures 3 unsuspecting travelers in Singapore and Taiwan to their deaths, where he further practices his skills with a knife. He's caught entering Singapore and yet again attempts to escape, this time from the death penalty.
Neither the prosecutor or the High Court believe that Scripps' story is true. They believe he is a cold-blooded killer and treat him accordingly.
John Martin Scripps argues that he is not by nature a violent person and that the thought of cutting up a human body makes him sick.
On November 10th, 1995, with his life hanging in the balance, Scripps is said to joke with the guards just minutes before the verdict. He states, "Karma is karma. It's in God's hands now."
After a 16-day trial, Martin is found guilty and is sentenced to death by hanging. Defense lawyers indicate they will appeal. Before John Martin Scripps' execution, Scotland Yard sends investigators to Singapore to interview him about the disappearance and suspected murder of Timothy McDowell.
McDowell disappears in Belize in 1995. At the time, there is a suspicious transfer of 21,000 pounds from his account to an account in the United States. The body of McDowell is never found. It is believed to have been cut up and put into a crocodile pit. It should be noted that this account was in Martin Scripps' name.
When Scripps hears why the investigators are there, he rages and refuses to speak to them. He's angry that his defense attorney allowed investigators to see him.
His sudden, violent reaction shocks his attorney, who has never seen this side of him before.
Another suspected victim is 24-year-old backpacker William Shackle, who went missing in Cancun. He disappears after cashing 4,000 pounds in traveler's checks and is never found.
An unsolved murder of a male sex worker in San Francisco also looks like the handiwork of John Martin Scripps. 25-year-old Tom Wenger is murdered in March 1994, his body found dismembered and drained of blood. Scripps is supposed to be in the UK at the time, but a composite picture matches his appearance.
Scripps refuses to talk about these cases before his execution.
On January 4th, 1996, John Martin Scripps withdraws his appeal. On March 10th, 1996, he declines to seek pardon from President Ong Teng Cheong.
Scripps has given up on running away.
In the days before his execution, John Martin Scripps writes a series of misspelled notes about his death, disappointment, and hoping his loved ones find peace.
His mother expresses great displeasure at the prison system and how it contributed to her son's criminality.
His ex-wife had known that something had gone wrong with Scripps, but she did not think he would turn into a killer.
But in the end, family does not formally object to the execution of John Martin Scripps.
It's noteworthy and strange that he commits these crimes in Singapore and then returns back to the scene of the crime, where the death penalty is put in place very quickly if you're convicted. You might wonder if he was not trying to find a way out of the sickness that he had.
The British government doesn't intervene to stop or even postpone the execution. In the end, everyone seems to agree that the world is a better place without John Martin Scripps.
While many may disagree with capital punishment, Singapore is a nation whose justice system is designed to keep its streets clean, not unlike a butcher learns to clean up his tools.